That's just what Paul did. Everywhere he went, he made friends with powerful people.
Well, it's just like the grace of God too.
Yeah, it family connections and his religious connections, and yeah, God putting him in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Being persecuted, but like never under or out of God's covering.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think too, like one of the things about Paul was he wasn't like saying, "Oh, I can't do this and I can't do that because of this." He's the kind of guy who's always asking the question, "How can I do this? How can I continue my mission? How can I, like, if God's allowed me to be here, how can I continue my mission from here?" Like, that's why he wrote all the letters. Like, he's got all these letters that he wrote while he was in prison. And it's like, he could have just said, "Oh, I'm in prison. I can't do anything. Like, I can't go preach the word. Can't." It's like, he's like, "I'll preach it from a pen. Like, I'll encourage the brothers. I'll do whatever, you know." And now we have years later, it's yeah, some of the most encouraging content of the Bible. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we have this, because he's like, he never said, "Oh, well, God, I'm in prison now."
Because he didn't just sit in a jail cell. They kept pulling him out and like, "Come up to court, Paul, let's have a conversation." And while he was there in Caesarea, at the end of the chapter, we read about how King Agrippa came down and Festus invited him and said, "You're a Jew, this guy's a Jew. What am I supposed to do with this guy?" And so they pulled Paul out and had this conversation, and he usually got a favorable hearing from Gentiles and rulers. The Jewish leaders couldn't stand him. They always wanted to kill him. But the political leaders tend to like Paul. He wasn't challenging their power at all. And that's actually something I really want to point out and talk about here, is that Paul really was challenging the power of the priests and the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin, just like Yeshua did. Some parallels that I wanted to point out. When Jacob went into Egypt, Genesis and Exodus both say he went in with 70 people. And it was actually more than that, but the number 70 is important because of the connection to the number of nations supposedly in the world. And then later, Moses chooses 70 men to be like a council of elders for the people. And this is the beginning of the Sanhedrin. This is at Mount Sinai when this happens. And then when they get to the land, Moses picks out 12 men to be spies. God commands him to, so this is a partnership between God and Moses. God chose Jacob. God chose those 70 people to go into Egypt. When they left, God told Moses, "You pick 70 men to be the elders of Israel." So Moses did it. And then when they got to the promised land, God tells Moses again, "You pick 12 men, chief men of the tribes, and they're going to be spies to go into the land." And this is really a collaboration between Moses, the people, and God. Because every time the people that Moses chose, yeah, something, I don't know, all these they are already men of good reputation and authority. These are all well-respected, powerful men in their tribes. He's not just picking random Joes off the street. And so then he sends, at least by tradition, he sends them in pairs to go explore out the land. That's not in scripture, that's just a tradition. It just says they went and they spied out.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they went each individually in their own direction.
Yeah, they would have gone in groups, and tradition says they went in pairs.
Some kind of group.
And I think this is supported by what Yeshua did.
Yeah.
Because Yeshua went and picked out his 12 disciples. This time he did not pick out powerful men who were already well respected. He picked out the least qualified people.
What are we talking about?
Yeshua's disciples.
Okay.
Other than,
did you say he picked the least qualified?
At least in the eyes of men.
Okay. Yeah.
So he didn't go and pick the tribal chieftains.
Right.
I mean, at that time there were no tribal chieftains.
He didn't pick the Pharisees.
Yeah, he didn't pick the Pharisees, fishermen, and laborers, and the zealot, which is the strangest one of all, and why, at least it seems that way to me. Yeah, I think the reason that he did that was partly just to deliberately to undermine the way that what people expected. Yeshua chooses his 12 disciples, and then early on in his ministry, he sends them out in pairs of twos. And he sends them out, go out to all these villages and, preach the gospel. And then later, as he's accruing more disciples, he keeps the 12. These are his core group. But he's got all these other disciples. He's got a group of 70 and a group of 200.
Right.
And then he takes the group of 70 or 72, depending on which translation you read. But that's the same with Exodus. It's either 70 or 72, depending
These
on the
are
translation.
the ones that he kind of like along the way was like, follow me. Or
Well, that's
go
the
out
first
and-
12. The other ones, as far as we know, are just people who attached themselves to him. They were people who started following him, even though he didn't specifically call them. I mean, we don't really
There
know.
was a point in the New Testament where there was a large group of them, and he told them to go out.
Yeah.
That was 70.
Yeah, that was what I was getting to next.
Oh,
Is
okay.
these also he sent them out in pairs of twos,
Okay, yeah.
and he said, go out into all the nations and preach the gospel. At first, he's saying, go out into all the villages of the Jews, wherever you find them. So he's sending them out into Lebanon and Syria and Perea, all these regions around Judea, and he's saying, go find all these towns wherever the Jews live. Go and find them, tell them about me.
Good.
And it says, if they refuse to hear you, shake the dust off your feet, move on. But the significance there is he's following the pattern of Moses. So Moses said, there will come a prophet like me, and he will tell you what to do, and you had better listen to him. And so here we've got Yeshua doing what Moses did, picking out 12 representatives, telling them, go spy out the land, see what the status of the Jews is. Then he picks the 70, says, all right, go out, conquer this land in my name, which is what Moses did.
Yeah.
He sent the 12 spies into the land to, okay, what's the status of this land so that we can conquer it? And then when the tribes get to the border, it's like, okay, now it's time to go in and conquer the land. Except Yeshua does it in reverse. He starts in the land and sends them out. He starts with the small, the insignificant, the questionable characters, and moves outward until he gets to somebody like Paul. Paul is the one that everybody would have expected Yeshua to call as his disciple, because he's a scholar, he's politically and religiously connected. Except Paul turns it all on its head again. He completely undermines the authority of the Sanhedrin and the priests. And, he insults the high priest right to his face in the middle of the Sanhedrin.
Oh, I didn't know you were the high priest.
Yeah. Oh, you're the high priest? I had no idea. And I think he does that because he doesn't want to distract from the point. He knows that this guy is not a legitimate high priest. Mm-hmm. And so he's saying, okay, let's play this game. We're going to treat you like the high priest because that's not why I'm here. And I don't want to derail this whole thing.
Exactly. Like making the issue about that.
Yeah. But here he is again, confronted by the chief priests and the Sanhedrin, and he completely disrespects them again. He says, no, I'm not going to Jerusalem. Those people have no authority over me. I'm a citizen of Rome. You have legitimate authority here, not them. I mean, that is so subversive.
It's almost like you just separated yourself from the Jewish, your old Jewish culture in a way.
Yeah,
it seems that way.
Like, I'm Roman.
And that's the way that he would have interpreted it.
that is.
But what he's really doing is he's walking in obedience to the real Jewish king, who is Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go back to Matthew 21, and I want to read this passage here. Matthew 21, you're going to read two sections, verses 18 to 22 and then 33 to 46.
You said Matthew 21?
Yeah. 18 to 22. The next morning, on his way back to the city, he felt hungry. Spotting a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. So he said to it, may you never again bear fruit. And immediately the fig tree dried up. The Talmudim saw this and were amazed. How did the fig tree dry up so quickly, they asked. Yeshua answered them, yes, I tell you, if you have trust and don't doubt, you will not only do what was done to this fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, go and throw yourself into the sea, it will be done. In other words, you will receive everything you ask for in prayer, no matter what it is, provided you have trust. So he's talking about the tree is not a tree, it's people. I mean, whenever you see any kind of metaphor in scripture with trees, it's talking about people. And he has encountered a fruitless group of people. And so he curses it, so they wither up. And what happens immediately after that, he goes to the temple and he is challenged by the high priests and the Pharisees. And they refuse to recognize his authority. He refuses to recognize theirs. And I think that parable, or that it's not a parable, that event is placed there. He did this thing with the fig tree because he knew what was about to happen in Jerusalem. And this is leading up to the crucifixion. This is Passion Week. And going down to verse 33. Now listen to another parable. There was a farmer who planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it, dug a pit for the winepress, and built a tower. Then he rented it to tenants and left. When harvest time came, he sent his servants to the tenants to collect his share of the crop. But the tenants seized his servants. This one they beat up, that one they killed, another they stoned. So he sent them other servants, more than the first one, and they did the same to them. Finally, he sent them his son, saying, "My son they will respect." But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, "This is the heir. Come, let's kill him and take his inheritance." So they grabbed him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Now when the owner of the vineyard came, what will he do to those tenants? They answered him, "He will viciously destroy those vicious men and rent out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him his share of the crop when it's due." Yeshua said to them, "Haven't you ever read in the Tanakh, the very rock which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? This has come from Adonai, and in our eyes it is amazing. Therefore I tell you that the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to the kind of people that will produce its fruit. Whoever falls on this stone will be broken in pieces, but if it falls on him, he will be crushed to powder. As the head Kohanim, that's the priest, and the Perushim, that's the Pharisees, listened to his stories, they saw that he was speaking about them. And then they set about to arrest him. They were afraid of the crowds because the crowds considered him a prophet. So he does this thing with the fig tree. Says, "This fig tree has no fruit, and so I curse it, and it withers up and dies." Then he's confronted by the Pharisees and the chief priests at the temple. And then he starts telling parables about them to the people. And he's saying, that this vineyard, the vineyard owner, the vineyard is Israel. Mm-hmm. And the owner, who is God, put these people in charge of the vineyard. And they are abusing it, not giving him his due. These are the priests and the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And so he sends his servants, who are the prophets. They kill the servants, throw them out of the vineyard. And so he sends his own son. And they say, "We'll kill the son, and then we'll inherit the vineyard." And of course, they can't inherit the vineyard if they're not relatives. So that means that he is talking about Jews.
So they're delusional.
Well, no, they're delusional that they can actually
inherit,
because the owner is never going to die. So,
right.
But they can't. If he could die, then they could inherit because they are relatives.
Correct.
They are Israel.
But God will not die.
Right. The son dies. They kill the son, and they throw the son out, or they kill him, throw him out, and so then the master of the vineyard comes back and says, "Now I'm going to remove you all. I'm going to give this vineyard to somebody else." This is exactly what Yeshua said he was going to do. And they all know it. They say they perceived then that he was talking about them. So he's taking the vineyard, Israel, away from the chief priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin. Mm-hmm. The Sanhedrin that Moses established in the wilderness, all the way through to this time. Yeshua is saying, "You guys are out of here. No more of this." He's not abolishing the Sanhedrin. He's replacing the membership of the Sanhedrin. Mm-hmm. Because he is the prophet like Moses. He is the son of God, and he has the authority to do this. So just like Moses, he picks a new group. He says, "I've got 70 disciples. These are the new Sanhedrin." And I don't know if that's what he was talking about when he told Peter, "On this rock, I'm going to build my church." I think there's some wordplay going on there, and he may be talking about himself. But I think what he really is doing here, and with this and some of his other parables, like the wineskins and the new patch on the old fabric, all these kinds of things, he's talking about replacing the entire thing. It's not talking about covenants or laws, not doing away with the law. He's doing away with the religious leadership. Saying, "I am removing this religious leadership and replacing it with this one." He can't replace the priests. The priests are the priests. You have to be a son of Aaron to be a priest. You can't take a fisherman from Galilee and say, "Okay, you're the new high priest."
Right.
You can't do that. But the Sanhedrin is outside of that system. These are the elders of Israel. And I think Paul recognizes this. Because after he has his encounter on the road to Damascus, he doesn't go to the Sanhedrin and say, "Hey, I had this encounter. What do I do?" No, he goes to James and Peter and says, hey, I met your boss. I'm in. Now what do I do? And he gets instruction from James and Peter on how to go about. He's the one who knows all the stuff. He was probably expected to join the Sanhedrin at some point. He was one of the top scholars of Torah in Israel.
Wow.
And so now he's changed sides, which, the Sanhedrin is probably thinking, well, we got rid of that one rebel. Now we got all the little guys to deal with, and now all of a sudden they have Paul to deal with. And it's not just Paul. Paul has submitted himself to the new Sanhedrin. And we see them in operation in Acts 15, where there's this controversy where people are saying, there's a group of Pharisees who are apparently believers. They have come to believe in Yeshua, but they're going around telling everybody, okay, you have to become a Jew now. You can't be a Gentile. You have to get circumcised. You have to obey all of our rules. Otherwise, you're not really saved. And Paul is really mad about it, and he's telling him this isn't so.
That's in Acts, right?
Yeah, Acts 15.
Yeah.
And so this is an argument about salvation and what you do with new converts. And so Paul goes to Jerusalem, and he says he goes to James and Peter specifically, and he says, these people are following me around causing all this trouble. So they come too, and they all have this big conference, and the apostles are together in Jerusalem. And it calls them the elders, the apostles and the elders, which is what they call the Sanhedrin. That's what Moses called them. He called them the elders. So these are the appointed, which is what apostles mean. They're appointed representatives, and the elders. So the first council, the Jerusalem Council, was the first official meeting of the new Sanhedrin. At least that's what I believe it was.
Yeah.
That's what you believe.
That's what I believe it was. And I believe that Paul's behavior backs that up. Because when he's got questions, he goes to the Jerusalem Council. Specifically, he goes to James, who is acting as the chairman.
Makes sense.
And when he is accused and questioned by the Jewish Sanhedrin, he does not recognize their authority. And they're all still Jews. The new Sanhedrin are still Jewish guys.